Interesting how a single wedding invitation can expose years of buried family favoritism. When my sister announced her destination wedding in Italy, I expected chaos. What I didn't expect was to be uninvited by logistics. My family forgot to book my ticket, forgot to include me in the hotel reservations, and acted shocked when I asked how I was supposed to get there. That's when it hit me, they didn't forget. They just didn't care. So I made a choice of my own, one that left them stunned, scrambling, and, ultimately, exposed in front of everyone they'd hoped to impress. My name is Brittany, and I've spent most of my adult life playing the role of the reliable daughter. You know the type, the one who drives everyone to appointments, handles last-minute emergencies, lends money that never gets returned, babysits nieces and nephews for free, and gets lectured if she ever says no. I became the emotional and logistical backbone of my family, and for years, I convinced myself that being needed was the same as being valued. But my sister, Clarissa? She never had that problem. She was adored, showered with attention, excuses, and praise even when she did the bare minimum. If she forgot a birthday, she was busy. If I forgot to bring potato salad to a barbecue once, I was ungrateful. Clarissa grew up believing she deserved everything and owed nothing. And somehow, my parents backed that up at every turn. So when she got engaged to her fiancé, Luca, I genuinely felt happy for her. I'm not bitter by nature, I'm tired, yes, but I'm not hateful. She called me the night he proposed, squealing so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I congratulated her. I really did. And when she said they were planning a wedding in Italy, Luca's home country, I thought it was a beautiful idea. But I also knew exactly what it meant: money. Planning. Travel. Complications. My family doesn't do complications without dumping them on me. Still, I told myself this time would be different. It wasn't. Months before the wedding, group chats formed, family chats, wedding chats, itinerary chats. I was in exactly one of them, a thread titled Bridesmaid Details. And even that chat barely had anything in it except texts like, "We'll update you later. Still figuring out the schedule. We're finalizing stuff, sit tight. Basically, we don't feel like including you." Meanwhile, my mom, dad, Aunt Carla, Uncle Ed, and even my cousin's girlfriend, whom they'd known for 6 months, were in the main family travel group. I wasn't. And yes, I noticed. Around March, I finally asked, "Hey, does anyone know the date you're all flying out? I need to request time off." My mother responded with, "Oh, sweetie, we'll handle the tickets. It's easier if we book everything together." I should have known right there. Weeks went by. I received no flight details, no hotel confirmation, nothing. Every time I asked, someone waved me off with, "We're still sorting it out," or "Your father's handling it," or "We'll tell you soon." By June, less than 3 weeks before the wedding, I realized something was wrong. People were talking in the bridesmaid chat about packing lists, Italian voltage converters, and last-minute fitting appointments. My sister posted, "Can't wait to see everyone in Rome," with a dozen heart emojis. Everyone. Meaning everyone but me. I called my mom immediately. "Hey," I said, trying to sound neutral. "I haven't gotten any flight info." There was a long pause. "Oh, about that." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "Well," she sighed dramatically, "the group rate expired. And we thought you said you weren't sure you could come, so we didn't want to book something you'd cancel." "I never said that," I replied, stunned. She hummed thoughtfully. I thought you implied it." "No," I repeated. "I never said that." "Well," she said briskly, "the seats are mostly full now. The family is already booked and confirmed. It might be tricky to find a matching flight. And you'd have to book your hotel separately too, because the rooms are full." I felt the words like a slap. "Mom, you excluded me." "No," she gasped, offended. "We just didn't think you were serious about going." "I'm a bridesmaid." "Well, yes, but Clarissa has plenty, and the pictures will be fine." That's when it clicked. They didn't forget. They didn't mess up. They just didn't think I mattered. My mom continued rambling about logistics, almost annoyed that I was making this complicated. Eventually she said, "If you really want to go, you can book your own stuff. But it'll be expensive." She meant, You're not worth the effort. So I hung up, opened my laptop, and booked a flight. A hostel. And a vow. I wouldn't let them erase me. And I certainly wouldn't play the obedient daughter anymore. When I landed in Rome, I half expected a knot of guilt in my stomach, something familiar, something that whispered, maybe they didn't mean it. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, clarity. The truth was simple. My family never saw me as a priority. They saw me as a convenience. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let that define me. My hostel was a tiny, colorful building tucked between a bakery and a bike rental shop. The room was simple, 2 bunk beds, a shared bathroom, a squeaky ceiling fan, but it smelled like coffee and lemon soap, and the staff greeted me like I actually mattered. That already made it better than any family hotel could have been. I dropped my bags, splashed my face with cold water, and took a long breath. I wasn't here for them. I was here for me. Still, curiosity got the better of me that evening. I checked the family group chat, the one I wasn't in, using the old preview trick. They didn't know I still had the notification banner enabled from months ago. The snippets were a parade of entitlement. Can't believe Brittany didn't confirm anything. She always makes everything difficult. Clarissa says it's fine, the wedding photos will be symmetrical anyway. Symmetrical. My absence was aesthetically pleasing to them. I should have closed the phone right there, but then I saw something else. Mom, make sure no one mentions the flight mix-up. We don't need drama. So they knew. They knew they were guilty. They knew what they did. And they didn't want the truth coming out. That, more than anything, settled my resolve. The next morning, I wandered through Rome on my own, espresso in hand, warmth on my face, freedom in my heartbeat. I visited the Trevi fountain, tossed in a coin, and whispered, let them reveal themselves. I didn't wish for revenge. I wished for exposure. And trust me, exposure came. By noon, I checked in for the bridesmaid rehearsal. Clarissa insisted every bridesmaid come to the villa the day before the wedding for a serious but fun practice session. I arrived early, partly from nerves, partly from wanting to see my family's faces the moment they realized I existed outside their convenience. The villa was stunning, blooming terraces, marble pathways, floral arches, photographers pacing around with clipboards, but the moment I stepped inside, all beauty evaporated into tension. My mother was the first to see me. She froze, blinked twice, and clutched her pearls like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Be Brittany? You're here? Yes, I said lightly. My flight was lovely. Her smile twitched like she was trying to tape it to her face. You managed to book something? I smiled back. Shocking, right? Turns out I'm capable of pressing buy ticket. She didn't laugh. Next came my sister, who sashayed toward me in a silk robe embroidered with bride on the back. When she turned and saw me, something flickered across her expression, not joy, not relief. Annoyance. Brittany, wow. Okay. You made it? I did, I replied. I am your bridesmaid, right? She hesitated, then nodded. Right. Yes. Sure. Yeah. It's just, I thought you weren't coming. Why would you think that? She didn't have an answer. Her mouth opened, but all that came out was a weak shrug. Then came the line that set the entire room buzzing. You know, Brittany, if it was going to be too expensive or too much work for you, you could have just told us. We wouldn't have judged. I felt the bridesmaids' eyes flick toward us. Judged? They hadn't even included me. Really? I asked calmly. Because from what I heard, the flights and hotel were booked without me. And no one told me anything. Clarissa stiffened. Mom said you were unsure. I locked eyes with my mother. She looked away. One of the bridesmaids, a woman named Serena, raised an eyebrow. Wait, they didn't book her ticket? That's odd. Clarissa quickly snapped back into performative mode. Okay, let's not do drama right now. We need to stay positive. The irony almost made me laugh. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only my sister could hear. Don't worry, Clarissa. I'm not here to ruin your wedding. I'm here because I actually care. She blinked, maybe surprised, maybe guilty, maybe both. But her response was as predictable as ever. Just, don't make anything about you today, okay? That was it. That was the moment the shift happened. Not anger, not sadness, but a clean break inside me. I wasn't their doormat anymore. I wasn't their safety net. I wasn't their background character. And they weren't ready for the version of me who had finally stopped caring what they thought. The rehearsal itself was a spectacle, not because it was elegant or emotional, but because it revealed every crack in the perfect little world my family tried to stage. Clarissa floated through the villa barking orders at the coordinators, demanding a different archway color, changing the seating arrangement every 15 minutes, and scolding the bridesmaids for breathing too loudly. Even the wedding planner, a patient woman named Valentina, looked one whisper away from quitting. I stayed quiet, not out of fear, but because I had nothing left to prove. My presence alone had already rattled them. Every time I moved, every time I adjusted a rose in my bouquet or stepped into a beam of sunlight, I saw the same expression flash across my mother's and sister's faces. She's not supposed to be here. They built a narrative around my absence, one where I was the irresponsible, flaky daughter who didn't follow through. My arrival shattered that storyline like glass under a heel. After the practice walk down the aisle, the bridesmaids gathered around a table for refreshments. Clarissa hovered nearby, pretending to be part of the conversation while scanning for things to criticize. She kept stealing glances at me, each one a mix of irritation and disbelief, as if my physical existence was an inconvenience. Serena nudged me. So, what really happened with your ticket? I hesitated, not because I was afraid to tell the truth, but because telling it would reshape the room. But then I realized something important. The truth wasn't drama. It was simply the truth. They didn't book it, I said plainly. Or the hotel. They told me there was no room and assumed I wouldn't come. The table went silent. One girl whispered, "But you're a bridesmaid." "Exactly," I replied. Serena clenched her jaw. "That's messed up." "Oh," Clarissa interjected loudly, clearly trying to drown us out, "it was just a misunderstanding. Brittany overreacted a little, but we're all good." She shot me a warning look, a familiar one, the kind that said, "Stay in line." But the more she tried to control the narrative, the more it slipped from her fingers. "I didn't overreact," I said evenly. I asked about flights repeatedly. No one answered me. My mother suddenly appeared, pretending she just happened to walk by. "Girls, this is a wedding rehearsal, not a gossip session. Let's keep the mood light." Translation: stop exposing us. I simply smiled. I'm perfectly light. And that smile, small, calm, genuine, unsettled her more than any scream could have. When the rehearsal ended, I headed outside to call a taxi. The villa courtyard was glowing under the golden Italian sun. A soft breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine. It was peaceful, until the peace was broken by hurried footsteps. "Brittany," my father called. I turned. He looked uncomfortable, like he had practiced a speech but forgot his lines. "Your mother said you seemed tense today." "I'm fine," I replied. "Just here to do my job as a bridesmaid." He shifted his weight. "Your sister is very stressed. Maybe you could try not to stir things." "I didn't stir anything," I said. "I just showed up." He sighed heavily. "Sometimes, showing up at the wrong time can cause issues." There it was. The message behind the message. "You showing up embarrassed us." "I flew across the world," I said, "to be part of the family. If that's an issue, maybe that says more about the family than it does about me." Before he could respond, Serena stepped out of the villa and waved to me. "Your taxi's here." I turned away without waiting for my father's reply. I didn't need his validation. I didn't need any of their half-hearted guilt or performative concern. I had already stepped beyond the invisible leash they'd kept me on for years. Back at the hostel, I found myself sitting on the common room balcony with a glass of cheap wine and a breathtaking view of rooftops. Two travelers, a Swedish girl named Ellen and an Australian guy named Marco, asked if they could join me. Within minutes, we were swapping stories, laughing, planning spontaneous sightseeing for later that evening. And it hit me. Strangers treated me better than my own blood. That night, I walked through Rome with my new friends, wandering past cobblestone alleys, gelato shops, and street musicians. They wanted to know everything, my job, my dreams, the real story behind why I was in Italy, and they listened without judgment. Without dismissing me. Without trying to shrink me. For the first time in a long time, I felt visible. By the time I returned to the hostel, I knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, the wedding day, I wouldn't be the Brittany they thought they controlled. I would be the Brittany who finally understood her own worth. And they weren't ready. Wedding day arrived like a lightning bolt. I woke early to the soft golden glow of Rome spilling through the hostel windows, the city humming with life outside. I packed my simple backpack with essentials, phone, camera, a small notebook, a few snacks. I didn't need a massive hotel suite or curated itinerary. I needed only one thing, a presence that couldn't be ignored. When I arrived at the venue, the chaos was palpable. Bridesmaids were scrambling to fix hair and makeup, photographers barked orders at each other like drill sergeants, the florist was trying to save an arrangement that had collapsed under the weight of the sun. In the center of it all, Clarissa glided through the crowd, a vision of bridal perfection, but with cracks showing around her eyes, a trembling edge to her smile. I approached calmly, glancing briefly at my mother and father. Their faces were masks, painted on smiles hiding the panic I knew lay beneath. They were checking who was watching, calculating if anyone else had noticed the inconsistency in the guest list. And then they looked at me. The moment was electric. "You're here," Clarissa said, her voice tight. "You made it." "Yes," I said, keeping my tone neutral but firm. "I'm here. You're my sister, and I'm your bridesmaid." She blinked rapidly, scanning the room as if to confirm no one else had heard. But everyone had. A few distant relatives stopped their chatter, a photographer paused, and even one of the groomsmen caught the exchange and raised an eyebrow. "You really didn't need to do all that," my mother said hurriedly, stepping closer. "We were handling everything. It was easier if I stayed home?" I finished for her. "Yes. That would have been easier for you." She flinched but said nothing. For the first time, I allowed myself a subtle but satisfying glance around the courtyard. Guests were murmuring, some whispering, others exchanging curious glances. I was no longer invisible. I was a statement. During the ceremony, I stood among the bridesmaids, my posture perfect, my calm a contrast to the flustered chaos around me. Clarissa's carefully rehearsed script for perfection was unraveling with every glance she cast in my direction. My presence was not just noticed, it was unavoidable. And when the photographer started grouping everyone for photos, I subtly shifted my position. Instead of letting myself be tucked at the back like I usually would have, I moved one step closer to the center. I smiled naturally, looked at the camera, and didn't shrink. The photographer captured me in a frame with the bride, the parents, and other key family members. The result? A photo that would circulate online for months, showing me fully included. A visual truth they couldn't erase. During the reception, the tension reached its peak. Clarissa attempted to orchestrate the table seating like she had everything under control, but I noticed her mistakes. She double-booked chairs, accidentally seated two relatives across from each other who were in a feud, and left gaps in the seating chart that left other guests whispering. Every little error reflected her distracted, frazzled state. I chose that moment to intervene politely, with an offer of assistance that sounded innocuous to outsiders. "I can help rearrange these seats," I said with a smile. "It'll make it flow better." She hesitated, flustered. "Oh, okay." By the time I finished, the seating was perfect, the guests comfortable, and my sister's control visibly shaken. Later, during the speeches, I noticed another subtle form of revenge forming. My mother, in her attempt to salvage appearances, slipped in a small brag about Clarissa's generosity and thoughtfulness, subtly implying she had done all the planning alone. It was meant to look like praise, but anyone paying attention could see the desperation behind it. I listened silently, savoring every word. Every overcompensated compliment was a reflection of their guilt and fear. By the time cake cutting began, I had fully embraced my role, present, composed, independent, and unshakable. I danced with friends I had met in Italy, shared stories with other bridesmaids, and even received compliments on how radiant I looked. And all the while, my family's irritation simmered just below the surface. Finally, the moment I had been waiting for came. During the traditional family group photo, I stepped forward confidently. My parents, still trying to maintain composure, shifted awkwardly to include me. Clarissa's forced smile was almost painful to witness. I realized then that the small gestures I had made, arriving on my own, booking my own stay, standing my ground, had completely disrupted the carefully crafted illusion of perfection they had tried to project. For the first time in years, I wasn't the background character. I was seen, fully and unavoidably. And that, I realized, was far more satisfying than any petty argument or dramatic confrontation could ever be. After the wedding festivities, I returned to my hostel one last time, the Italian night wrapping around me like a soft blanket. I could hear distant laughter from the streets below, music from nearby cafes, and the hum of life continuing, indifferent to the chaos my family had caused and their attempts to control me. That night, I reflected on everything that had happened, the exclusion, the assumptions, the subtle dismissals over the years. I realized that none of it had broken me. In fact, the opposite had occurred. Every slight, every forgotten ticket, had only strengthened my resolve. Brittany, the background character of family dramas, was gone. Brittany, the independent, self-assured woman who set her own boundaries and refused to be manipulated, had emerged. I had flown alone, booked my own lodging, navigated an unfamiliar city by myself, and participated in the wedding on my own terms. And while my family tried to maintain appearances, they couldn't hide the truth. I was capable, confident, and no longer reliant on their approval. The entire experience felt like a subtle revenge in itself, not through confrontation, yelling, or dramatic exits, but by simply existing on my own terms and allowing them to realize they had miscalculated. They thought I would be passive, overlooked, and compliant. Instead, I was visible, strong, and independent. And that visibility alone unsettled them more than any argument could have. Walking through Rome's quiet streets on my last evening, I smiled, feeling a freedom I hadn't known in years. The city was mine for those few days. I made my own memories. I met incredible people. I laughed, explored, and existed fully, all while my family realized that their assumptions about me were wrong. By the time I packed for my return flight, I carried more than just souvenirs. I carried confidence, dignity, and a renewed understanding of my self-worth. I didn't need them to validate me, to include me, or to apologize. My actions had spoken louder than any words could. I returned home not only having participated in my sister's wedding but having claimed my own power within a family that had long underestimated me. That alone was my victory. This experience taught me that sometimes, the most satisfying revenge isn't loud or aggressive, it's quietly taking control of your own life. My family tried to erase me from an important moment, assuming I'd step aside. Instead, I booked my own path, showed up confidently, and let my presence speak for itself. Standing on my own, I realized I didn't need their approval or recognition. I had already won. And for anyone who's been overlooked or dismissed, remember, showing up for yourself can be the most powerful statement of all.